You've been told not to judge. That judging makes you cruel. That judgment is arrogance. That kindness means staying silent. But Nietzsche would spit on that idea. He knew when a society kills judgment, it kills the individual. Because to judge is not to hate. To judge is to discern. To separate truth from lie, strength from weakness, real from fake. But today, judgment is treated like a disease. Everyone is valid. Every opinion is equal. Every lifestyle deserves respect. We're told that morality is personal, that truth is relative, that tolerance is virtue. And so we silence our instincts, not because they're wrong, but because they're dangerous. And yet, you still feel it, the discomfort, the gut signal, the internal no, but you've been trained to ignore it, to smile, to nod, to approve. Why? Because a population that won't judge won't resist. Nietzsche called this the decline of will to power, the drive to assert, to rank, to choose. And without judgment, that will collapses. You stop deciding. You drift. You obey. But here's the truth. You are judging all the time, every second. You judge what to believe, who to trust, how to live. The only difference is whether you do it consciously or whether you've handed that power to someone else. You weren't born to be neutral. You were born to see and say what you see, even if it burns. They didn't teach you to be just. They taught you to be nice. Don't offend. Don't correct. Don't speak too directly. The modern world treats discomfort as cruelty. And so judgment, real, necessary, honest judgment, is labeled violence. But here's the truth. Niceness is not goodness. It's a costume. It keeps things smooth, not real. It replaces confrontation with compliance. And underneath it, rot grows. Lies fester. Weakness spreads. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a system where the strong are tamed, where the noble are poisoned by guilt, and where those who refuse to lie are cast as villains. Niceness is not harmless. It's what allows decay to masquerade as compassion. But a man who can't say no, can't say yes, with meaning either. A soul that can't judge, can't choose. And a world without judgment becomes a playground for the fake. You weren't born to be nice. We're born to be precise. One of the deepest fears implanted into your mind is the fear of being wrong. Not because error is fatal, but because in a world where judgment is demonized, being wrong makes you evil. So you hesitate. You mute yourself. You pretend neutrality. But Nietzsche knew truth is discovered by those willing to risk judgment. To say, I believe this is better than that. This is higher. That is false. But now, judgment is confused with oppression, standards with supremacy, and excellence with exclusion. You are taught that certainty is arrogance, when in fact, uncertainty is obedience. Judgment isn't about domination. It's about direction. If you never judge, you never move. You just float in moral fog. Wake up. The only real danger is not being wrong. It's being so afraid to judge that you never even think. Modern man worships equality, but Nietzsche saw it as a drug, a lie we swallow to avoid seeing the terrifying truth. We are not the same, not in strength, not in will, not in clarity, not in courage, but we are told, don't judge, don't rank, don't compare. And so we blur everything. Genius and ignorance, virtue and vice, beauty and decay. All are treated as equal, and we applaud ourselves for it. But in truth, we're just avoiding the pain of recognizing greatness, and the obligation it creates, to see clearly, is to see the gap. Judgment is not cruelty. It's honor. It says, that is better. I must rise. Or, that is rot. I must not follow. Equality without discernment leads not to peace, but to mediocrity. And mediocrity is a slow death of the soul. Hierarchy is a dirty word now, but Nietzsche saw hierarchy as natural, not imposed, but discovered. Some ideas are better. Some spirits are stronger. Some lives are more awake. But when you fear judgment, you fear hierarchy. And so, the culture flattens everything. Everyone is valid, so no one is challenged. Everyone is enough, so no one grows. But if there's no hierarchy, there's no aspiration, no reverence, no fire. The moment you judge, truly judge, you draw a line. You say, this is higher, that is lower. And that creates responsibility. So we kill the ladder instead. But the price is high. You stop climbing. You become passive. You drift among the dull. And your soul grows numb. Judgment revives it, not through cruelty, but through the courage to see and act on what you see. From childhood, judgment is beaten out of you, not physically, but psychologically. You raise your hand. That's not fair. You speak truth. That's wrong. The response? Don't be rude. Who are you to judge? Be nice. This is not education. It's conditioning. Nietzsche called it the moral taming of man. Not to elevate your soul, but to make you manageable. To replace insight with obedience. The more you suppress judgment, the more confused you become. You second-guess your instincts. You defer to experts. You outsource truth. And eventually, you lose your compass. You become a mirror, reflecting the crowd, not a flame, lighting your own way. But your judgment is a gift, a weapon. And the more you train it, the sharper it becomes. Suppress it, and you become silent. Honor it, and you become sovereign. Truth doesn't whisper in polite tones. It punches, it rips, it judges. But you've been taught that truth should always be gentle, that it should never wound, never confront, never disturb. Nietzsche rejected this softness. He knew that truth is brutal, and that's what makes it pure. If you are unwilling to judge, you are unfit for truth. Truth is not neutral. It divides. It burns illusions. It demands cost. So when someone says, don't judge, what they really mean is, don't think too deeply. Don't question this. Stay quiet. But every truth is born from judgment, a rejection of the false. Every breakthrough is an act of defiance. To speak truth is to wound the world. And sometimes, to wound yourself. But without that cut, there is no awakening. Tolerance is sold as strength. But Nietzsche saw that unchecked tolerance often hides fear. The fear of confrontation. The fear of clarity. The fear of standing alone. You tolerate everything, not because you agree, but because you're afraid. To be labeled cruel, intolerant, harsh, and so your silence becomes complicity. Judgment is not intolerance. It's boundaries. It says, I see what this is, and I will not pretend otherwise. But modern tolerance teaches you to blur your own lines, to accept what disgusts you, to smile through lies, and to call it compassion. It's not compassion. Cowardice. You can be kind and still judge. You can be compassionate and still refuse to accept the unacceptable, but only if you reclaim the will to draw the line. Judgment begins with a word most fear. No. No to the lie. No to the performance. No to the herd. Nietzsche respected the man who could say no, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because no is a declaration. I see what you are, and I choose otherwise. The world hates that word. It wants your approval, your submission, your silence. But every time you say no with conviction, you fracture the illusion. Judgment is not hate, it's choice. And the man who can't say no, he has no self, only a costume. Judgment isn't always logical. It's often instinctual. Nietzsche believed in instincts, in the body's wisdom. the gut's warning, the primal clarity that modern man has learned to suppress. You feel it when something is wrong, when someone is lying, when a situation is false. But instead of trusting it, you negotiate with it. You doubt it. You bury it in politeness. That is the death of your inner compass. To judge is to trust your vision, even before it makes sense, even when it's unpopular, even when it shakes your comfort. Your instincts are not your enemy. They're your first form of truth. Weak people hide behind acceptance. They call it open-mindedness, but it's really fear. Fear of clarity, fear of conflict, fear of being seen. So they chant, don't judge, be inclusive. Everything is valid. But Nietzsche knew, when everything is accepted, nothing is respected. Tolerance becomes a smokescreen, a moral escape, a way to avoid taking a stand. But the world doesn't change through acceptance. It changes when someone finally says, this is wrong. This is better. I will choose. Judgment is not violence. It's vision. The word discriminate has been demonized, but its original meaning? To distinguish, to discern, to separate the real from the false. Nietzsche believed discrimination is intelligence in action. The man who cannot discriminate is not virtuous. He is blind. Your power lies in your ability to see what others won't and act on it, to refuse the fake, to pursue the true, to cut through illusion with precision. Stop apologizing for your discernment. Refining your judgment is not hate. It's how you build a self-worth living in. The world is drowning in lies, in noise, in masks. It doesn't need more neutrality. It needs you, sharpened, awake, unafraid. Your judgment, fully reclaimed, becomes a torch. It burns away falsehood. It reveals structure. It creates order out of chaos. They taught you not to judge because they feared what your judgment would destroy, their illusions. But judgment doesn't destroy the world. It remakes it. And the soul that dares to judge becomes not a rebel, but a creator. You weren't born to nod, to agree, to behave. You were born to judge. To see with terrifying clarity, to cut through noise, to name truth, even when it costs you. Judgment is not a flaw. It is your edge. It is the muscle of the awakened soul. The refusal to live in pretense. And when you reclaim it, you stop floating. You stop lying. You stop playing the role of the good, neutral person. You become dangerous, not with hate, but with honesty. So judge. Boldly, relentlessly, unapologetically. Because the world doesn't need more nice people. Needs people who see and say what they see. Every time you refuse to judge, you pay a price. Not publicly, but privately. A small fracture in the soul, a quiet betrayal, a subtle erosion of clarity. You witness a lie and say nothing. You watch weakness celebrated and clap politely. You feel the truth rising in your throat, and you swallow it. That silence is not peace. It is moral suicide. Nietzsche taught that to live without truth is to rot from within. And without judgment, truth cannot survive. Because judgment is its sword, sharp, dangerous, essential. Moral silence doesn't protect harmony. It protects decay. So ask yourself, how many times have you abandoned your own clarity to be liked? To fit in? To avoid friction? That was not kindness. It was surrender. And now you're left with a life that's palatable, but not yours. It is time to speak again, to choose again, to judge again, not because you are cruel, but because you are finally awake. This is your moment. The moment you stop outsourcing your soul. The moment you take back the voice that was trained to whisper, to please, to conform. Judgment is not the end of compassion. It is the beginning of integrity. When you dare to judge, you reclaim authorship of your life. You stop living second-hand. You stop mimicking the herd. You stop waiting for permission. Nietzsche believed in the sovereign individual, one who creates his own values, who confronts the chaos of life with a blade of clarity, who judges not to dominate others, but to liberate himself. You do not need to justify your discernment. You do not need to dilute your truth. You need only to remember, the mind that refuses to judge is not moral. It is asleep. But you are waking up. So, sharpen your tone, steady your eyes. Speak like it matters, because it does.